get some breeze off the water there, you know?
They probably come out. They probably came out of quarantine today. Most of them. They should be at their 48 hours, I would think. But or they should have the testing done, I guess. Then find out whether they. Then they got to go into 14 days of quarantine, regardless, unless they're positive. Then they get to start the process, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
So it should be nice. I don't have to run this thing. I get to just let Diane take care of it.
Yeah, is she gonna?
Yeah.
I'd like to call the June 10th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Liberty, justice.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Commission Chair Twait,
Here.
Commissioner Springer,
Here, can you hear me?
we can hear you. Commissioner Halstead is not
Okay.
here at the moment. Is he up there? No. Commissioner Mcintyre,
Here.
Vice Chair Fikes.
Here.
Commissioner Askin.
Here.
Commissioner Greenberg.
Here.
Vice Chair Fikes, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, before we get to the agenda approval, I'd like to draw your attention to the laydown we should have in front of you with a requested revision to the agenda and packet. Okay, I'd go ahead and read in the laydown. Action item H4, action approval, transition to in-person / Zoom hybrid meetings requested by the city planner. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the requested revisions?
I move we approve the agenda with requested, with additional laydowns.
Are there any objections? Can I get a second
Can we
motion?
get a second from those of you on Zoom? We've only got 2 in the room.
I'll
I'll
second.
second. Oh,
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Twait.
Is there any objections?
Okay.
Seeing none, the agenda's approved.
Thank you. Item number 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you. Item number C, scheduled public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll move on to item D, unscheduled public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment at this time? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on. Item number E, consideration of Platts. We have 2 before us today. One is Resolution PZ 2020-15. It's a preliminary subdivision plat of Holland Spur Highway Subdivision, 2020 edition, submitted by Sagesser Surveys, 30485 Roslyn Street, Soldotna, Alaska, 99669, on behalf of Glenn Martin, P.O. Box 1389, Soldotna, Alaska, 99669. Can I have a motion, please?
I would move to approve PZ 2020-15 with staff recommendations.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Now can we hear from the city planner, please? Staff report?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. So my staff report for this agenda item starts on page 10. And the preliminary plat is shown on page 16. There's also a larger size version that was mailed to the commissioners or is also posted to the meeting item. And that's for both plats that we have on the agenda tonight. The map on page 17 shows aerial imagery. So the applicant is proposing to take the existing tract 2 shown on this map and subdivide it into 2 parcels that would be then called tract A or tract 2A and tract 2B. And this is in the Holland Spur Highway subdivision. Tract 2A would be about 3 acres, and then tract 2B would be approximately 3.5 acres. The city has not received any public comments on this agenda item. In my analysis, I went over a few of the notes on the plat. So the tracks are, or the proposed tracks are both adjacent to the right-of-way for the Kenai Spur Highway. This is a state right-of-way, so any driveway would have to be approved by the state of Alaska. There's no additional rights-of-way that are designated. The applicant did mention in a phone call that there is an existing driveway that it doesn't look like it's shown on the aerial imagery, but the applicant did already obtain a permit for one driveway, and it's on the eastern edge of tract 2B. There is a gravel pad that is also on the proposed tract 2A and 2B. That's shown in an outline on the plat. That one also is not on the aerial imagery because it was put in after the date that the image was taken, but there's a gravel pad that's in the middle of tract 2 currently, and then it would be on the eastern part of 2A and the western part of 2B. And so I just called to the attention that if any buildings are put on this gravel pad, the applicant would still have to meet setbacks for the new separate parcels. And Plat Note 3 states that development must meet requirements of the Kenai Municipal Zoning Code. I did also note that the agenda item F1 has requested a rezone of this parcel from rural residential to general commercial. Right now, the commission is only considering the subdivision of this plat. It's entirely separate from the rezone. So no matter the commission's decision on the rezone, this is just regarding the subdivision of the existing tract 2. City of Kenai water and sewer lines are not available to the subdivision, so the property owner would have to install a private well or septic system following State of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation guidelines. An installation agreement is not required, and Plat Note 10 does state that wastewater disposal it addresses wastewater disposal, and it does state that the soil conditions have been found suitable for a conventional on-site wastewater system. On page 12 of my staff report, I just called out that there's a 15-foot easement for utilities on the property lines adjacent to the right-of-way for the Kenai Spur Highway. And there is a section line easement on the eastern part of proposed tract 2B that would stay in place. And then Plat Note 8 references a Homer Electric Association easement. Plat Note 6 references the Kenai Peninsula 50-foot anadromous stream habitat protection area. And I did have a recommended adjustment to that note that as may be amended, just to match what the commission has approved for a previous plat. I thought it better would cover if any changes are made in the future to that piece of borough code that that covers anadromous waters. And so the stream, there is an anadromous stream on the eastern part of tract 2B, and so development will be limited on that part of the parcel. The plat meets the requirements of Kenai Municipal Code for subdivision design standards and subdivision regulations, and I recommend approval of the preliminary plat of the Holland Spur Highway Subdivision 2020 edition, subject to the following conditions. One, that further development conforms to all federal, state, and local regulations, and two, that Plat Note 6 is amended to read portions of the subdivision are within the Kenai Peninsula Borough 50-foot anadromous stream habitat protection area. See Chapter 2118 Kenai Peninsula Borough Code of Ordinances as may be amended for restrictions that affect development of this subdivision. The staff report. Actually, I'm just looking. Oh, and actually, I have one other thing to say before my staff report is ended. I noticed I have a typo. I have Code of Ordinance. It should read ordinances. I recommend the commission actually amend my resolution to fix that typo. Okay.
That's a typographical error. We can correct that after.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. All right, now that's the end of my staff report.
Thank you, City Planner Appleby. Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone who wants to speak to Resolution PZ 2020-15?
If anybody's attending on Zoom that wants to speak to this item, please raise your hand with your either *9 or your device. I see no one raising their hand.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and ask the commission for their wishes. Commission, does anybody have any questions? Anybody out there in Zoom land, questions, discussion?
I had a question.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Do we know anything more about note number 4, which says the property is, subject to a reservation of easement for highway purposes? What are those allowed uses? We know?
Good question. I'm going to defer that to Planner Appleby.
Yes, Commissioner Greenberg, Plat Note 4 references a public land order that created right-of-ways for state highways. So it's a general note for the right-of-way of the Kenai Spur Highway. I have a copy of the public land order in my office, but it basically just created the right-of-ways for state highways.
So this is part of what could potentially be a right-of-way?
So it's saying there's, the property is subject to an easement for highway purposes, so the part of the proposed tracks 2A and 2B, there's the Kenai Spur Highway in general, it's shown as a 300-foot right-of-way, so it's just saying, it's referencing that there's a right-of-way for the Kenai Spur Highway.
Well, they're allowed to build on there?
No.
Okay. Just curious about the purpose of the subdivision then. Anyway, okay, I guess no, that doesn't really have an answer. Thank you.
The purpose of the subdivision?
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Greenberg?
Yeah, they can't build on there, right? Correct?
Well, yes, Commissioner Greenberg, that's correct. They can't build on the right-of-way for the Kenai Spur Highway.
Okay.
So they could build on, as long as they're far enough back from the Spur Highway, they can build on these parcels, but just if they're too close to the Kenai Spur Highway, or such that they would be within the right-of-way, they could not build there.
So the easement is the right-of-way?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it's the 300-foot right-of-way for the Kenai Spur Highway, and it's the right-of-way for the Spur Highway. It varies as you go along, so they could not build on the right-of-way for the road, on the southern portion of 2A and tracks 2A and 2B.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Twait?
Yes.
Okay, we're not there yet, but hold that thought.
Oh, we're not
Okay,
voting. Well,
let me call for a vote. We could start with you.
that's what we were doing. So confused on this side.
Okay, are we ready to call for a vote? Okay.
Okay, now we'll vote. Commission Chair Twait.
It'd be weird to change my vote now, so yes.
Commissioner Springer.
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead.
Oops, yes.
Commissioner McIntyre.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fikes.
Yes.
Commissioner Askin.
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to E2 on the agenda. Resolution PZ 2020-16 is a preliminary subdivision plat of McClellan Estates, Addition Number 1, submitted by Sagesser Surveys, 30485 Roslyn Street, Soldotna, Alaska, 99669, on behalf of Cheney and Marianne McClellan, 701 Davidson Drive, Kenai, Alaska, 99611. Item 2, Resolution PZ 2020-16, and that's the same thing. All right, can I get a motion?
I move
Yes,
we
I'd
approve.
like to make a motion to approve Resolution PZ 2020-16.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Springer.
Second that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Twait. Did I get that wrong? I apologize.
You did.
Okay.
I got it. I got that Halstead seconded it.
The city clerk is on top of this. I trust you. Okay, I'm going to call on City Planner Appleby for a staff report at this time.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. So the staff report for this agenda item starts on page 19. The aerial map on page 26 shows where the property lines are currently. So there's currently two lots, lots 1 and 2 in the McLennan Estates, addition number 1. And the applicant is proposing to subdivide so that there would be 3 lots. There would be lot 1A, lot 3, and then lot 2A. And the subdivision is essentially to separate the two residential structures that are currently both on the same lot. So I think they're currently both on lot 2, and so this would separate the two structures, and then the property line is being adjusted a little bit to take a bit out of lot 1A in order to keep the driveway on the new lot 3. So the city has not received any comments on this agenda item. Access to these lots is from Davidson Drive, which is a gravel road maintained by the city. And I'll point out Davidson Drive connects to the Kenai Spur Highway, and there's that same plat note. So on this one, it's plat note 5, and that references the public landowner that created the right-of-way for the Kenai Spur Highway. And it also has a note, plat note 4, that the state has to approve access to the Kenai Spur Highway. So any new driveways to the Kenai Spur Highway are approved by the state of Alaska. I go over in paragraph 2 of my analysis on page 20. I go over the water and sewer services. So the water and sewer on this lot, it connects to, it connects to the house, the bigger house that's, it would be on the proposed lot 2A, and then it goes from that house to the house that's on the proposed lot 3. And so this is not allowed by code. So the applicant is aware that they need to cap the lines going from one house to the other, because you can only connect directly to the water line. So basically, if someone sold, if the property owner would sell one of these lots in the future, we wouldn't want the water lines to go to cross parcel lines and potentially be in different ownership. So they have to connect directly to the water line. So the applicant is aware that they have to do that. And the city has talked initially with the applicant about getting an installation agreement in place that would state that the water, sewer, and there's actually also some electrical lines that would need to be capped on lot 3. The lot is such that on lot 3, potentially a septic system and a well could be put in place that meets state standards. That is, in plat note 10, it does state that the soil conditions are such that they are suitable for a conventional on-site wastewater system. And so this plat, it wouldn't be, once it's referred to the borough, it wouldn't be recorded until that installation agreement is in place that would be signed by the city and the applicant. And with that, I recommend approval of the preliminary plat of McLennan Estates Edition Number 1, subject to the following conditions: that further development of the property conforms to federal, state, and local regulations, and that prior to the plat being recorded, the property owner enters into an installation agreement with the city of Kenai to meet requirements for water, sewer, and electrical lines serving the proposed Lot 3. And then a third recommendation is to denote the width of Davidson Drive on the plat. End of staff report.
Thank you, Planner Appleby. I am going to go ahead at this time and open it up. I am going to go ahead and open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to Resolution PZ 2020-16?
Vice Chair Fikes, your member of the public that was on Zoom has left the meeting.
I'm going to ask again, is there anyone out there that wants to speak to PZ Resolution 2020-16? We're open for public comment at this time. Okay, seeing it's just the commissioners and those here in chambers, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Wishes of the commission. Anybody?
I have a question.
Commissioner Greenberg?
No, that's Halstead.
We have comments?
Joe? Commissioner? Commissioner Halstead?
This is Joe Halstead. A question in regards to when I'm looking at the drawings presented on page 25 and the photo on page 26, the housing between lot 3 and lot 2A, is that going to be any kind of issue with right away, or are they close to that line? Is there enough spacing, I guess is what I'm trying to say, in between the lot lines and the house?
Sounds like you have a question about Lot 2A.
Is the house too close to the lot line the way it's
Commissioner Halstead, thank you for your question. No, it will not create an issue where the homes would encroach into the setback. We did speak with the applicant about that because we had the same concern when we saw the plat initially, but we determined it would not create an issue where the homes would encroach into the setback requirements or the right-of-way of the road.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Commissioner
I have a
Green,
question too.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yeah, there's a discrepancy in the street names between the photo and the plat.
Street and drive.
Yep.
I agree, there is a discrepancy. So if I may just recap Commissioner Greenberg's point, Chair Fikes. So Commissioner Greenberg pointed out on page 26, the aerial imagery, the street name is Davidson Street, and on the plat it is Davidson Drive. I actually want to go back and just double check that we have the right name on there. Can I?
Okay, good question, Mr. Greenberg. At this time, we're going to take an at ease for about 5 minutes to do a little research. We will get back to you with an answer on that very good observation. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're back on the record.
Okay, we have an answer from the city planner to that question.
Yes, Commissioner Greenberg, that was a very good catch. It should be Davidson Street. I checked the Kenai Peninsula Borough, method of street naming. It's in section 1410.070 of Borough Code, and it should be street given its north-south orientation. We also found documentation in the city's records of an ordinance that addressed several street names in the city. So this is resolution 96-35, and that had it as Davidson Street. So the underlying plat that has drive was incorrect. So an additional condition of approval for this plat should be to change drive to street.
Sorry, forget it. I'm stuck in my background now. I was just looking on the borough website, and they actually have for their E911 stuff drive, and the last plat was drive as well. So there's still a discrepancy.
If we change the underlying plat, we can communicate with. If we change the underlying plat with the city, we can communicate with the borough 911 person to make sure their records are updated. Because there's another agenda item later in the packet that discusses a street name, and that one, the person had originally wanted it to be street, but we kept it as drive given the orientation. So I think this one should be street. And on Google Maps, the street sign that's there currently says Davidson Street. So I think it would be better to change the plat and then have the city communicate with the borough 911 to get it updated.
Yeah, it looks like there's a pretty deep discrepancy there.
Commissioner Askin?
I would move to amend Resolution PZ 2020-16, section 1, add a fourth condition of approval to change Davidson Drive to Davidson Street.
Do I need a second?
Second.
Commissioner Twait, thank you for the second. Any other discussion? Any other comments or concerns?
I have one, and it's sort of along the same issue that Commissioner Halstead brought up. When I look at the aerial map, where the old lot line is, and I look at the new plat that they've submitted, it looks like they're moving the line over in order to allow for the driveway that's coming in off of Davidson Street. If I'm looking at that correctly, won't that run it right through that, whatever, is that a parking lot or I'm not sure what that is back there, but is that an issue or not?
I'm going to refer that question to the city planner.
Looks like it's going to bisect that, whatever that is. It's hard to tell from the picture. It looks like a parking lot or something there.
Okay, Commissioner McIntyre, I'm going to interrupt you for just a procedural moment. We have a amendment on the table, so I'm going to ask for a vote on just the amendment that Commissioner Askin presented and Chairman Twait seconded. So if I could get a vote on that amendment at this time, please.
Commissioner Springer?
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead? I muted him.
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commission Chair Twait.
Yes.
Okay, the motion to amend section 1 to add the fourth condition to change Davidson Drive to Davidson Street has passed, and now we are on the amendment to adopt resolution 2020-16 as amended, and Elizabeth can go ahead and answer Commissioner McIntyre's question.
Thank you.
Commissioner McIntyre, I do not feel the moving of the property line will affect the driveway. I guess, for clarification, which parking lot? Because the way I'm seeing it, it'd move the property line. The driveway on the right would lead to the house. It would lead to the house that's on the north side of the current lot 2, and then the existing driveway to the house that's on the southern part of current lot 2 would remain in place. What's the parking lot, or could you give more detail on your question on the driveway?
Yeah. Well, so as I understand it, the aerial map shows the existing division, and it looks like there's just the 2 lots, and the division comes, let's see, it would be south of the driveway. And it looks like on the new plat, they've moved that so that the division is north of that driveway that comes out onto Davidson Street. And if that's the case, doesn't that cut straight across? What is that back? Is that a parking lot, or what is that back in there? It's hard to tell. It looks like a place where they've parked a bunch of equipment. I'm just asking for clarification. Is that going to be an issue, or since that would put whatever that is on both sides of that property line?
Commissioner McIntyre, if I may, I actually have experience going to this particular residence, and what the aerial map actually shows is it looks like there's one driveway off of Davidson, and actually there is a driveway slightly through the trees close to that property line, but one driveway off of Davidson applies to all 3 structures. There's one structure immediately to the right, and an office and a home to the left. I don't know if that helps you any or not.
And Commissioner McIntyre, I can add, I don't think that it would be an issue. I think there would still be a driveway accessible from Davidson Street to both the residences that would be on separate parcels with this plat subdivision. So I don't foresee it being an issue.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments or concerns?
I have a kind of another question that hopefully isn't going to open up a can of worms. Do we know, and is it okay with have we located the gas and electric coming into the primary residence, which I assume would be that left parcel? Do we know if the utilities coming in off the street are going to be on the new lot entirely, or could they possibly weave into where that new lot is, and is that an issue?
I'm going to refer to the city planner, Appleby.
Chair Twait, the applicant met with the Public Works Director, I think it may have been as early as last year. If it wasn't last year, it was earlier this year. So there has been ongoing talks about the utilities on this parcel. I feel the installation agreement will resolve any utilities that could end up crossing lot lines, and so the results would be just a direct connection to the to each residence, basically. So a direct connection to each building. And to do that, the applicant would cap any utilities that are currently in place to achieve that result. With the installation agreement, I don't feel utilities crossing property lines would be an issue, and I feel the applicant's initial talks with the Public Works Director, I feel there's an understanding of how the installation agreement would be written once it's finalized.
Very good.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'm gonna call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Halstead,
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commission Chair Tweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Springer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, that brings us down to item F1, public hearings. We have one. It is a resolution PZ 2020-13. It is an application for the rezoning of two parcels adjacent to the Kenai Spur Highway and described as tracks 1 and 2, Holland Spur Highway subdivision, and located at 7344 and 7450 Kenai Spur Highway. We want to go from rural residential to general commercial. The application was submitted by the majority property owner, Glenn Martin, P.O. Box 1389, Soldotna, Alaska, 99669. Can I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution PZ 2020-13.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Springer. Commissioner Askin. I will go ahead and call on the city planner Appleby for a staff report at this time, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. The staff report for this agenda item starts on page 28. On the map, flip to that. The maps on page 35 and 36, I think, are particularly useful. Probably the one on page 36, I think, gives a pretty good idea of the zoning that is currently for these two parcels, and then what the zoning is and what's surrounding these. So both of these parcels are fronting the Kenai Spur Highway for approximately 2,640 feet. They are currently within the rural residential zone, and the majority property owner, so in this case it's just one owner for these two parcels. Since their size totals over 10 acres, so they're approximately 11.84 combined, the owner meets the requirements to request a rezone, and the applicant has requested a rezone to general commercial, or CG. So these parcels front the Kenai Spur Highway. They are currently vacant and surrounded mostly by vacant land. There is a gravel pad covering one of the parcels. The map shows the adjacent parcel to the east is owned by the city, and the city also, in a combination, owns and leases City Wellhead number 1. That wellhead was damaged in the 2018 earthquake, and it's set to be relocated. However, the surrounding parcels are basically either vacant, they're owned by the city, or have some sort of institutional use, or they're already zoned central commercial. So I noted the parcel that's directly across from Shark 2 is already within the general commercial zone. And I did note that some of these parcels are owned by the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority as well. The rural residential zone is intended to create for low-density residential development in outlying and rural areas in a form which creates a stable and attractive residential environment. The CG zone is intended to provide for areas where a broad range of retail, wholesale, and service establishments is desirable. And uses are regulated to concentrate commercial development to the greatest extent possible. New residential uses and other non-commercial uses are not permitted in this zone as principal uses. In my staff report, I concluded the general or CG zone is more the general commercial or CG zone is more consistent with the layout of the parcel. The applicant has indicated some plans for commercial development. Commercial uses could take advantage of the frontage that exists on the Kenai Spur Highway. There's not currently any adjacent neighborhoods, and I could not foresee that any residential housing would be built in the near future on neighborhoods, or I didn't think a rezone would affect the quality of neighborhoods within the city. I noted there's the Nadrima stream that's on the eastern part of Tract 2, and the 50-foot habitat ordinance prohibiting development would still protect that stream even if the zone is changed to a commercial zone. I pulled a phrase from the comprehensive plan that it states original community has expanded with commercial development along the Kenai Spur Highway. So this zoning change would reflect changes in city layout over time, and it supports Goal 3 to develop land use strategies that implement a forward-looking approach to community growth and development. And I also pulled a phrase that said that in the comprehensive plan, it specifically states that commercial land uses dominate the corridor along the Kenai Spur Highway. So I felt that these two rectangular parcels with long frontages that are not adjacent to neighborhoods is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission pass resolution number PZ 2020-13, which would recommend a rezone to the Kenai City Council from rural residential to general commercial of these two parcels. And that is the end of my staff report.
Thank you, City Planner Appleby. At this time, I will go ahead and open it up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public, anybody in the audience that would like to speak to Resolution PZ 2020-13? Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the commission for discussion. Anybody? Thoughts? Commissioner Greenberg?
Yeah, it seems like there's just we don't know what's the plan for this area. With the subdivision and the change. Oh wait, this is a different. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's an application for a rezoning from a rural residential to a commercial general.
Oh yeah, I just got confused. I thought this for some I was picturing this as the other.
I think that one's coming up next.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have just a quick question. When they approached the rezone, was it brought to them to consider limited commercial along there, or is there whatever their plans might be, would it have not been suitable for a limited commercial zone in there?
Good question. I'll refer that to City Planner Appleby.
Yes, Chair Twait, I concur with your question there, because I also thought of that, but when I looked further at what was surrounding these parcels, the map, let me pull up the page. the map that's on page 36, when I looked further, I realized that there was already a stretch of general commercial across the street and also directly adjacent to the west of one of the parcels. And since there were no neighborhoods around it, I felt general commercial was more suitable because the limited commercial zone, the intent is to provide a transition zone between commercial development and residential development. And so here I felt there really was nothing to transition to. So I felt it better met the intent to rezone these to general commercial.
Okay, and the parcels that aren't developed behind there are also rural residential or not?
If I can.
Yes, go ahead.
Chair Twait, yes, the parcels behind are still rural residential, but there's currently no development. And if I remember correctly from my staff report, I think that parcel is owned by
The mental health.
yeah, the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority. So I guess I didn't foresee a neighborhood being there at any point soon in the future.
Yeah, I agree. It would probably create more of a spot zoning situation to go to limited commercial. I just was wondering somewhere down the line might be, depending on what they want to put there, it might have been a better fit. But I guess without knowing a lot of things, we can't live in supposition and try to figure it out down the line too far. So I'm in agreement with that.
I had a question for staff. Is there a wetlands designation on any of this parcel?
Yes, Vice Chair Fikes, there is an anadromous stream that runs through one of the tracks. So it was the one that we just looked at for the plat. So development would be limited by the borough's habitat ordinance that requires development stay 50 feet away from anadromous streams. The plat for one of the tracks, I know it did show an area of inundation, but the biggest thing that would keep development from impacting the anadromous stream would be the borough's habitat ordinance.
And then I had one other question on the city's relocation of the wellhead. Is that going to be anywhere relocated in this same area or completely away from it?
Yes, Vice Chair Fikes, that's a good question. So the wellhead is set to be relocated adjacent to some existing wellheads. There, if you keep going further outside the city on the Kenai Spur Highway, on the left-hand side, there's, let's see, I'm recalling from memory here, but yeah, it's like by Shotgun Road, there's another wellhead. There might be two wellheads there, but that's where this one is set to be relocated.
Okay, but on the
yeah.
same side that they're on now, just further to the west, it sounds like?
It would be on the opposite side of the Kenai Spur Highway.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes?
Commissioner Chair Twait,
Yes.
Commissioner Springer,
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and I just want to note for the record, there is a 15-day appeal period that you can apply for through the city. Moving on to agenda item G, unfinished business. We have no unfinished business at this time. Brings us to agenda item H, new business. We have a resolution PZ 2020-17. It is a request to rename Belchy Drive to Pelch Drive The request was submitted by the adjacent property owner, Michael J. Pelt Jr., at 3230 Harlow Road, Eugene, Oregon. That brings us to the new business item, the request. Can I have a motion at this time, please?
I move that
All
we,
right, I'll make a motion. Who got it first?
Go ahead, Commissioner Springer.
Bob.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution PZ 2020-17.
And a second, Commissioner Askin?
certainly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Alrighty then, can I get a staff report from Planner Appleby, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. So I'm looking on page 52. So this Michael J. Pelch Jr. owns lots 2 and 3 that fully border Belchy Drive. I believe I included, yeah, on the map here. So he owns both parcels that are on either side of Belchy Drive. He has submitted a request to change the name of of the road to Pelch Drive. I spoke with the Borough Emergency Services person, and the borough had no objection to the street name, and the name would still be consistent. I'm tacking this street name diagram up next to my desk because keeping the drive suffix still meets the Kenai Peninsula Borough method of street naming. So given that, I felt that I don't have an objection to this change, and I recommend that the commission pass this resolution that formally states the city does not have an objection to the changing of the street name from Belchy Drive to Pelch Drive. End of staff report.
Thank you. That brings us back to the commission for discussion. Anybody? Anybody have thoughts? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call the vote.
Vice Chair Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commission Chair Twait,
Yes.
Commissioner Springer,
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead,
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 2 under new business, authorizing the city planner to send a letter to the Kenai Peninsula Borough supporting a 1-year time extension to finalize the plat of Keys Turn subdivision. Can I have a motion, please?
I move we approve, we authorize the city planner to send a letter to the Kenai Peninsula Borough supporting 1-year extension to finalize the plat of Keys Turn subdivision.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Bringing it back to city planner Appleby for a staff report, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. So the city received a request from the borough, or a letter from the borough noting the request for a 1-year extension to finalize the plat of Keys Turn subdivision. The reason given for the request is just that the owner has not finalized the subdivision. There have been several time extensions given over the years for this particular plat. And so I did speak with the Kenai Peninsula Borough staff about a new code change that is forthcoming. So it would amend the borough's subdivision code that would give a time limit for it basically would make it so you can't just keep asking for an extension without end. And so given my knowledge of that, I still felt it was appropriate to grant a 1-year time extension so that the owner could work on finalizing the subdivision for this plat, knowing that eventually that there would be something in place that would prevent him from just coming back every year to ask for this. So I felt it was reasonable and consistent with a recent decision that the commission recommended a time extension for a different subdivision that it also had some repeated requests for an extension before. So if the Planning and Zoning Commission approves, I will sign a letter of non-objection to the time extension on behalf of the city and send that to the borough. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Planner Appleby. I will go ahead and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any thoughts? Commissioner Tweet.
Okay, refresh my memory. What year did they first come in and apply for that subdivision? Was that 2014, 2015, somewhere in that neighborhood?
That sounds right to my recollection, but I'm going to refer to Planner Appleby.
Vice Chair Fikes and Chair Tweet, the City of Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission initially recommended approval of the preliminary plat in December of 2013 under PZ 13-41. So 2013. The plat probably wasn't finalized until 2014 at the borough, though. And it looks like it was recorded in 2015.
And then we've been granting 1-year extensions since then, is that correct?
Chair Twait, 1 or 2 year time extensions.
Okay. So I'm curious, so there was no reason given other than just to finalize it, which is, I mean, let's be real, that would be, I mean, it doesn't take that long to finalize it. So, and I know we went through lots of work on approving this to begin with private streets and not extending water and sewer and things of that nature. So I know we've done a lot of work on this. Have they given any, if we extend this one more time, 1 more year, what's the borough's time frame for changing that ordinance? Can we put a restriction on it right now to say we'll extend it 1 more year and that's it? Or is that not within our guidelines to do that? Because it is ridiculous that it takes this long, and I get it, maybe, you know, whatever reason, there's a lot of reasons probably, but just to repeatedly kick it down the road doesn't seem like it's good for anybody either. So I'm just curious what the borough's time frame is, and is there any precedence? We have nothing in code that says we can only do it this many times. We could continue doing it as is right now forever.
I agree with you, Commissioner Twait. I'm going to refer to Planner Appleby.
Chair Twait, I am not aware of a stipulation in Kenai Municipal Code that limits the number of time extensions for a plat, since that is under Kenai Peninsula Borough Code. If this is my remembrance, I think it was 10 years was the limit that would be with the code change at the borough, if I'm remembering correctly. So I guess I could write, I could amend the letter to state these concerns.
Well, you know, I more or less throwing it out there as a discussion item for everybody else to kind of chime in. Maybe it's not as big of a deal to other people or not. But, you know, I'm not saying we need to etch it in stone that they only get 1 more year, but I'm kind of more curious whatever everybody else thinks, first of all. And like I said, I know we kind of bent over backwards at the start of this thing when Cindy Manager Cook, went round and round and dealing with the owners to begin with, and so I think we've done a good deal of meeting them halfway, and so I'm just curious, I guess, what everybody else thinks.
I'll go ahead and chime in. I concur with Commissioner Twait. I do recall having quite a bit of discussion when it first came around, and I believe they were even away in Hawaii, and they returned, and they were trying to get some surveyor to come up with some, like you said, some lot lines and some zoning and cul-de-sac decisions and what have you, and we granted it at the time, but then the same question came up. We keep repeating this process, and my concern is also, are we setting a precedence for the next applicant? I don't have a problem approving it, but like you say, it just feels like a rubber stamp.
Correct.
I don't know what our mechanism is to change that. I don't know if we can amend the notes to say that this is the final one, or without further explanation and not having the applicant in front of us. In the beginning, they were here, but they're not here now. And if I recall from memory, I know that Commissioner Peterson at the time, I think, brought it up, and I think that's where I heard that 10-year thing from the borough. He had some experience with that and shared some thoughts on it, but he's not here now, and like I say, the applicants aren't here, so I don't know. I'd have to refer to the city planner if there's anything we can do as far as putting something in the amendments or the notes.
Vice Chair Fikes, I guess because it's not a resolution, so it would be amending the letter to note to reflect the commission's concerns with repeated approvals of the plat. I can add a sentence or two to the letter that state that still recommend approval of a 1-year time extension, but that get it on the record that the commission had some concerns with repeatedly approving the plat. Anyway, and my rationale for approval is, I guess, given that I know this 10-year time limit is coming with the borough code change that the city could defer to, or eventually would set a limit on how many times an extension could be granted.
I guess being the borough rep, I can keep a heads up when it comes around again and be sure to echo our thoughts or my personal thoughts on the subject, so I'd be happy to keep tabs on that. Anybody else have any thoughts or concerns?
I'd like to chime in, or I guess maybe ask a point of clarification.
Sure.
Is there a fee? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner McIntyre.
Is there a fee for an extension? And if not, maybe that's something we should consider, that we don't just give extensions for free, but I think you weed out who's serious and who's not by making them pay a substantial fee to get an extension. But that's just a suggestion.
And I don't know the answer to that either, but I would agree, you know, there's a lot of time involved, not necessarily on our end sitting here debating it, but from the planners and everybody else that has to deal with it and go around and around with it. So I agree there's cost involved with the city, so there should be some mechanism for a fee to extend it. And I don't know, maybe you can, Ms. Appleby, you can answer that question.
I'll go ahead and refer to the city planner, Appleby, on that.
Oh, correct.
I would check the city's fee schedule without looking at that to double check. I think the fee is paid to the borough because they are the platting authority, and the city, we still accept a form for plats. Actually, for this, the time extension, it's just the borough sends us a letter. Yeah, so I can't answer this one. The borough just sends us a letter. For a time extension, there is not an application that's submitted to the city. It's just the borough asks, if we have any objection to them granting the extension through a formal letter.
So I guess a follow-up to that is then, so we're just basically giving a recommendation. We could say, no, we don't want another extension, but it still comes down to the borough platting to decide that, correct? They're just more or less looking for our concurrence with that?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Well, you know, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know if legally we can say we'll extend it this time, but not again in a year. But I think we'll obviously think about it again next year, and most of us will be here, and so they will probably get the minutes from this and understand where our thoughts are on it, and then maybe we won't have to go down this road next year anyway. But I know it's long past due, that's for sure.
I concur. I'll be looking for the item on the agenda at the borough level, I assure you. Is there anyone else? I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote.
Commissioner Askin?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Chair Twait?
Yes.
Commissioner Springer?
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead?
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre?
No.
Vice Chair Fikes?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, we have item 3, an application for a 10-year lease renewal of the city-owned land within the airport reserve, described as Lot 1A, Block 1, General Aviation Apron, Subdivision Number 6, and located at 330 Main Street Loop. The application was submitted by Kenai Aviation Services, Inc., DBA Aviation Services, 1755 Lincoln Hill Road, Martinville, Indiana. Can I have a motion, please? Can I have a motion for an application for 10-year lease?
I move that we approve the application for the 10-year lease renewal of city-owned land within the airport reserve, described as Lot 1A, Block 1, General Aviation Apron, Subdivision 6, and located at 330 Main Street Loop, Kenai, Alaska.
Can I have a second?
Second.
I'd second that.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call on City Planner Appleby at this time for a staff report, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. So this, the lessee has requested a 10-year lease renewal. The lessee is Kenai Aviation Services, doing business as Aviation Services. They do have a sublease to the United Parcel Service, or UPS. And I know that the sublease is good agreement, is good for another 6 years, and the file shows documentation that the city approved of the sublease. So the applicant has requested a lease renewal for 10 years. They qualify for this lease term based upon the term table, and the applicant also submitted a professional estimate that was conducted by a licensed real estate appraiser that showed that the existing improvements qualifies them for a lease term of 10 years. The city, we advertised this lease application for 30 days as required by code. We did not receive any competing lease applications for this parcel. The uses would remain the same that are on the current lease. This applicant has already converted to the city's new standard lease form, and they're current on rent payments. And so the annual lease rate is, since they've already converted to the new lease form, it's adjusted annually based upon the consumer price index. This parcel is within the airport light industrial zone. This use meets the intent of this zone to protect the viability of the Kenai Municipal Airport as a resource to the community by encouraging compatible land uses and reducing hazards. I noted the sublease to UPS provides necessary shipping services to the city. This use is consistent with the City of Kenai Comprehensive Plan. It supports the third goal of economic development and also the fifth goal for transportation, which has a vision for the Kenai Municipal Airport as a gateway to the Kenai Peninsula. This lease application is within the airport reserve. It is set to go before the airport commission tomorrow night. And so the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Airport Commission will be provided to the Kenai City Council when they review this application and may choose to approve it with a resolution. So I recommend the commission tonight recommend that the City Council approve of this lease renewal by a resolution. And attached in the packet, there's a map in the application. End of staff report.
Thank you, Planner Appleby. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the commission for discussion. Any thoughts? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commission Chair Twait,
Yes.
Commissioner Springer,
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead,
Yes?
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin. Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to our next item, number 4, which was added at approval of the agenda, and that is a ratification of the decision to transition to in-person / virtual hybrid meetings. An action approval item. Can I go ahead and get a motion for item number 4, please?
I approve that, that we transition from, to, a hybrid virtual in-person meetings in the future.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I will go ahead and open it up to the commission for discussion. Anybody's thoughts? Do we want to have in-person? Do we want to have Zoom? Do we want to keep a / half and half?
I have a question.
Go
Is this intended to have a time limit, or is it like for perpetuity? Or?
It's intended to have a time limit through the end of the public health emergency with COVID.
Question 2.
Commissioner Greenberg.
So it's always been possible to call. So when this expires, would Zoom be a suitable substitute for calling in?
Through Vice Chair Fikes, we can call in for free, and Zoom costs about $100 a month. So likely when the pandemic is over, we will cancel our Zoom membership and it will be going back to calling in.
Okay.
Oh. There's the nugget of information. It's costing the city money to participate in Zoom. So if we'd like to continue with that fee, or we can go back to meeting in person / call-in. I personally, I favor this.
There's not really a benefit to having Zoom in other than there's video, right? So if we were all to still decide to work remotely, we would still have the option of calling in. So the only thing Zoom is giving me the ability to do is to see Gary's hairdo and you know, be able to like physically see people on the screen. But I mean, for the most part, we've got our packets with us and we can call in. I don't see any benefit to Zoom, especially if it's costing us money.
That is correct.
Vice Chair Fikes, so I just want to point out that it's not just the Planning and Zoning Commission at this point that's meeting that way, because we all still need to be 6 foot distanced, and we still need to allow the public to testify if they don't feel comfortable coming to the room. We will be having Zoom until the pandemic is over, so this is really just until the pandemic is over.
So until the public feels comfortable coming inside the closed walls, we have an option of.
So if you bought Zoom stock, be ready to sell it here when it ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Short sale, short sale.
So when you guys voted on email, I think I had 4 yeses to the in-person virtual style meeting as opposed to completely by Zoom. So we just need to ratify that decision.
That's correct. So we're not re-voting, we're just gonna ratify that existing vote, correct?
Well, we're re-voting on that motion that Commissioner Askin just made.
And so that we all understand, that was a back in person, back to normal
In-person
style.
virtual,
In-person, virtual,
hybrid.
hybrid. Option of Zoom or option of participating in person. Either or, is that the way I understand it?
Correct. You can participate in person or by Zoom.
Got it, okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna call the vote.
Chair Twait,
Yes.
Commissioner Springer,
Yes.
Commissioner Halstead,
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, agenda item I, pending items, we have none. That brings us to agenda item J, reports. A, City Council. I'll call on City Councilman Nexted. Would you like to present us with a report?
Absolutely.
Hey.
Okay, City Council did have a meeting on June 3rd. You have the action agenda in your packet. It doesn't look like it's this long, but it took us 6 hours to get through, so we were here till midnight. So I don't think your meeting's going to go that late tonight, unless I go on a little long. But anyway, what we discussed under public hearings, we unanimously postponed an ordinance that would repeal Kenai Municipal Code Title 16, elections to provide clarity and so forth. And that has to do with the primary vote by mail ordinance that is at the borough level. We wanted to kind of wait and see what was going to happen there because it hadn't been approved, and it kind of has, but it's going back for reconsideration. So we still don't know. So we postponed it, and we also set a work session that anybody here is welcome to come to. It's set for June 18th at 5 o'clock here at Council Chambers. And we'll be talking about, how the vote by mail system would really work. And it's not just by mail. You can actually take your ballot and bring it in and do other things. But just how it works, and we're trying to get the information to council and to the public, just how that goes, and also give the borough a little extra time to see what changes they might make, because we might want to make some different changes to our code. But I think Jamie, the clerks, who primarily put this together, probably got it pretty well nailed down, but why jump ahead when we don't have to? The other thing too is the amendment that was made at the borough level so far on the vote by mail is it's not going to happen this year. It won't become effective until after January 1st of next year. So just not a big rush. Moving on, we had adopted unanimously a couple of lease agreements with a restaurant at the Kenai Municipal Airport, extending that for 1 year, as well as with Grand Aviation at the terminal building. There's no Raven, so we really couldn't do it with them too, which would have been part of this. We supported a borough ordinance, but a borough assembly establishing a resilience and security advisory commission for the Kenai Peninsula Borough. And this group would be basically looking at things like global warming, how it's affecting the borough, generally plastic bags, just kind of environmental, a lot of things like that. And I believe that they answer to the Borough Planning Commission, which will then in turn answer to the Borough Assembly. And it's intended that there's going to be 9 seats on this, and for different areas, and then 4 seats that are at large. And one of the areas was Kenai, Soldotna, Sterling, and gosh, maybe Kasilof or something, or K Beach. Kind of a huge area where almost half the population was one of the areas, but there were, several other areas. And so we supported the borough moving forward. They're going to most likely do it anyway, but what we wanted to see was that there'd be a designated seat for Kenai representative on this commission. So we'll see how that goes when it comes up. Then we adopted unanimously Resolution 2020-38, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the city of Soldotna to provide animal shelter services, which we've done in the past. It's worked well, and so we'll continue with that. And it's been a 1 year at a time thing, and this extended a little more time since it has worked out well for both cities. Then we discussed Resolution 2020-39, providing a grant disbursement program for small businesses and nonprofits. At the last meeting, I talked about the CARES Act, the $7.7 million coming to the city, and how that was going to be divided into 5 different accounts. And so this is one of those accounts, $3 million that will be split in between small businesses that were impacted, as well as nonprofits, and that is active now. They've got applications, the city does, and they're working through it. And I think the application period goes through about the end of next week, to the 19th. Okay, pretty quick. So anyway, that is online and available, so you might get the word out. I saw it in the Clarion, and I also heard it on the radio, so, and on Facebook as well. I wanted to point out that the city administration did actually a magnificent job putting this together. Basically, a pamphlet on how the process is going to work, common questions that would be anticipated, as well as the forms and everything. Created out of blue sky, basically, and it was informative. It looked good, looked very professional, and done in no time at all. And the city of Kenai is the first to do this on the peninsula, too. Moving on, that, I guess that would actually end my report. If anybody has any questions of me.
I have a question. On that CARES Act, so if a small business owner wants to apply for that, just playing devil's advocate, what if we don't have enough people that apply and there's still a pot of money? Where does that money go? Does that go back to the government, or does that go to the city of Kenai?
The city has till the end of the year to put that money into the economy here. So if that were to happen, that's an interesting question, because what if you don't get enough nonprofits, and we had part of it going into, but what we can do with any leftover money, we could, one, extend it and do this again, or we could take that money and put it into one of those other 5 accounts. And one of the accounts that they're working on now, it's about $900,000 is for individuals. So we might be able to put it into there. But I don't think that's going to be a problem.
I just know some businesses were having difficulty because some I know from experience applied for grants from the government in the beginning, and because they applied for those grants, now they're not eligible for the state assistance, and the state assistance was the CARES Act that was to be divided up at the city level. So that's why I was kind of concerned that some of our local businesses might be shut out.
That is a concern because I don't think you can, if it's double dipping, you know, or if you get a grant from Kenai, I don't know that it's real clear yet, but I think the way it's going to be, it's my personal thought, is if you get one from Kenai, but then something more desirable comes up, you know, from another place, if you don't cash the check, perhaps you take it back to the city and it didn't happen in a way. But there's going to be some of that. If you get them a lesser grant from somebody, you might just be stuck with that, and that's, I think, currently how it works.
Okay, thanks.
City attorney's here if he has. He would probably be really tuned into that, or what's changing.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, item number J, reports. B, borough planning. That'd be myself, and the borough had a planning and zoning meeting on Monday, and the borough is still meeting, unfortunately, by Zoom. And I say unfortunately because we were scheduled to meet at 7:30, but out of 13 commissioners, 3 of us were unable to log on. And somehow the borough decided it was going to be okay to continue on with the meeting. So although we couldn't get on Zoom, at 7:40 I could get on to the phone line, but then at 7:50 the phone line dropped, and then at 8 o'clock I got picked back up, but then it dropped again. And somewhere in the melee of all that, I didn't get it picked back up until the resolution for the city of Kenai had an applicant that was applying for a boat launch that was going to be moved from an existing location to a new location. And the application had to go through the Kenai River Center. And the Kenai River Center was denying their application to relocate this boat launch. So the borough was having a discussion on it. Unfortunately, my phone jumped back in, and so I was able to get the last end of a vote that I have no idea what the discussion was, but now I was part of the discussion for the boat ramp, which was part of the city of Kenai. So I'm glad I was able to participate in that. And I voted, and the vote was a denial, or a vote was a yes vote to deny the River City's denial. So basically the applicant is able to go ahead and do what he's going to do without further disruption to the river, which was the intent of the River Center's denial. But basically it's all going to work out as the way I understood it. And they're still going through Zoom, so I don't know how that's going to work in the future because they're borough issued iPads and we can't log into the Zoom thing, which was pushed out through the borough. So we can go through our phone lines, but sometimes the phone lines for whatever reason drop. Everybody's got different carriers, so I'm so glad the city of Kenai is letting us do this. Hugely grateful. So that unfortunately is all I have. I know there was plats that were approved during the process. We met from 7:30 until 10:40, 10:50 I believe. There was a application for a marijuana retail location in, gosh, I believe it was the Anchor Point area on the Sterling Highway, I think it was. And then, like I say, the boat launch one. But unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of discussion out of a lot of that whole evening. So myself and the gentleman from Soldotna and the gal from Seward, all 3 of us were kind of bumped in and out of the whole conversation the whole night. So I'm not sure what the borough's thoughts are on that. So that is all I have at this time. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Planner Appleby for administration's report at this time.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. I am going to discuss the informational item. So under L1, I pulled some information from the American Planning Association website on variances. So I just pulled 3 documents that I thought gave a decent summary on basically if you're giving too many variances, then it's a sign that your code is what needs to change. And then I went over some of just how to make decisions on variances. I do want to note that when I logged into the American Planning Association website, they list some sample codes, like model codes for variances. In Anchorage, Alaska, it was actually listed. So
Cool.
that was kind of neat. And if I can throw part of my city administrative report time to the city attorney, I would like to do that for him to supplement my administrative report.
All righty, I will go ahead and turn it over to our city attorney, Mr. Scott Bloom, for his presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Fikes. So I think what I want to start with is just sort of a recap on the history of the variance that was just approved by this commission a few meetings ago. Just sort of give a little bit of a historical background. I understand maybe some of that information was uncertain at the time. But basically, this nonprofit that provides low-income and senior housing to people that qualify as low-income and seniors that are also low-income came to the city and said, hey, we've been doing these projects all over the borough, and we'd like to provide the city with more low-income housing and housing for its seniors. We'll pay for it, but we want free land from the city to do that. And the city identified some parcels that were in some neighborhoods, and there was some objection from the current people that lived in the neighborhoods that, you know, didn't want low-income housing next door to them or senior housing. And so the city said, well, look, we've got some big parcels. We can subdivide some land off of those for these projects. And at that time, the Housing Initiative actually presented its plan to us, which was to build 4 sixplexes. So the city knew ahead of time that the intent was to build 2 sixplexes on each lot, and the city subdivided off the lots. And as it turns out, the lots were not big enough to accommodate the plans for the Housing Initiative. And I think that's where the variance is probably appropriate, in the sense that the city had the plans, had site plans and thought that what they were, the acreage that was being given was appropriate. I mean, I think that there was no shortage of acreage. I think the parcels came from about a 60-acre parcel or more, so there was certainly more land available if the city thought that was needed, but the city thought that it was accommodating the plans, and I think it was just a mistake or short-sightedness on the city's part in that subdivision process. So I think it is fair to accept in that particular case that the problem was not caused by the applicant for the variance, the Housing Initiative, but it was misunderstanding or miscommunication between the city and the Housing Initiative, or maybe we just weren't thinking far enough ahead as to how much land was needed. So I think that the commissioners should feel comfortable with that particular finding. Although I think it is, as Elizabeth said, I think from a planning perspective and probably from the courts and most attorneys, there is the perception or thought that variances are overly generously granted by commission members in general. I think it's hard because you have an applicant coming to you often in pretty dire straits, you know, sort of saying, hey, it's really going to hurt me if I can't do this. And sometimes it's hard to really hold the line on what the law requires. I think probably most variances are granted, whereas if you asked a planner or an attorney, they would suggest that most variances shouldn't be granted. But each one has its own specific set of facts, and I think it's important that you just go through the facts and make the best decision that you can. One other thing is, you know, unless something is really time sensitive, I think it's always fine to postpone an action if you want more information or feel that you'd be more comfortable making a decision if you had more information. Unless there's a real strong justification that something needs to happen right away, I would recommend that you not be afraid to postpone an action and ask Elizabeth for more information. And I also just want to reiterate that I'm always available for any commission member to come talk to me or call me, or if there's a request for me to come to a meeting, I'm always more than happy to do that as well. That's all I have, unless there's any questions or comments.
Commissioner McIntyre? Commissioner Twait?
Nope. I'll go first, I guess, since I don't know if Tim wants to get on there. So I didn't realize you were there tonight. So my first question, I'd like to circle back to the extension of the plat. Do we have, would it have been appropriate to put a language in there that says it's good for 1 year and then we won't do it again, or is that not the right way to do it?
Thank you, Chairman Twait. So I think a version of that is certainly appropriate, and I don't think it's too late if that's what the commission wants to do. Our city code doesn't deal with extensions at all. It's completely a borough process, and they're asking for a recommendation. I think our relationship with the borough is pretty strong right now, that if we did object to something, they would honor that unless they found that our objection was unreasonable or arbitrary. I think that I don't think it's fair to bind a future commission to a decision to say you're not going to approve it next year, but I think it's fair to say, you know, we're going to approve it this year, but next year we'd like to take a hard look at it, and we have concerns about continuing to improve this or approve an extension without good reason. And right now we actually, I don't know that the subdivider has provided any reason to either the borough or the city, and maybe that's not the way that we want to do business. I think it's also fair when the borough looks at amending its code to put a timeline on extensions for this commission to weigh in. 10 years seems like a pretty long time to wait for something after it's been approved to get finalized. And why I think it sounds like a long time from my perspective is because they're sort of grandfathered into the laws at the time that they apply, so they could get in early and not have to comply with like new road standards or new subdivision standards, new utility standards, and just keep waiting and waiting and waiting for 10 years without doing anything, but be grandfathered in and not having to comply with more modern regulations. So that's one reason why I would argue against allowing somebody to continually just ask for extensions without good reason.
Great, I appreciate that. That's good information. Thank you.
I really didn't have anything, any questions at this point. I just wanted to thank the city attorney for coming this evening, and also the information he shared, as well as Commissioner Appleby on the information that she put in the packet, and for clarifying that it wasn't the applicant's fault or mistake that prompted the need for a variance, but rather that the city was had made a mistake. And that's all I was seeking, was because it seems pretty clear even in the stuff that the information that Commissioner Appleby put out in this packet, that one of the conditions is it can't be as a result of an error made by the applicant. As in, oh, I didn't know at the time that I was building into the easement or something like that. But anyway, thank you for for bringing that information forward and for letting us know that in the future, a postponement would be probably the best course. And I guess I would have a question for whoever's running our Robert's Rules of Orders at this point, as far as, is a postponement a motion, or how is that handled in a meeting?
I'm going to refer to the city clerk.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fikes. Postponement is similar to a amendment motion. You're typically already going to have a motion on the floor to adopt or enact something, and it's just a motion to postpone to, you're going to need to put a date on it. So like the next meeting or a specific date.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Okay, that brings us to agenda item K, additional public comments. Anybody in the public? Nobody in the public? Agenda item L was the city attorney's presentation. We just had that. Brings us to agenda item M, the next meeting attendance. Is anyone planning on being absent? Scheduled meeting is for June 24th. Seeing no one, I will move to agenda item N, commissioner comments and questions. Commissioner Twait?
Well, I will just say thank you for stepping in. I would be very happy to be back home. I'm ready to get on flat land instead of working on a hillside. So, but thank you for stepping in and helping out tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Happy to help. Commissioner Springer?
I don't have anything additional.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Nothing to add at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Halstead?
Nothing additional for me.
Commissioner Greenberg?
No, I don't have anything.
Commissioner Askin?
I'm good, thanks.
Alrighty then. That being no other business before this body, the meeting is adjourned. Yay!
Yay.
Joe
Right.
clapped.